everyone, it's Rachel from Spice by Rachel Sweet, and today we are doing a super easy candied pecan recipe. I've made this recipe many times and my family loves it and asks it routinely for every holiday, especially around Christmas and Thanksgiving. It's so easy, it only needs 3 ingredients: pecans, sugar, and of course our pumpkin pie mix. And here we've got it right here. This is for sale on our website at spicebyrachelsweet.com, and I'll link that down below so that you can get some pumpkin pie mix for yourself as well. This really makes this recipe special. So we're going to start off by measuring our ingredients. We need 1 cup of pecans and a 1/2 cup of sugar, and put those in this pan right here. You'll want to use pecan halves so that you get a bigger crunch. I know they have chopped pecans and pecan pieces, but if you can get the halves, these are really ideal for making candied pecans because they're bite-sized. So next, all we need to do is to heat on medium, and it's going to take a couple minutes for the sugar to start melting, but once it does, we really need to stick around and keep stirring because when it sticks, it starts to burn. So we'll turn the heat on and kind of watch it and stir occasionally, but as it really starts going, we'll start stirring more and more often. And then once it's about done, you'll notice how the consistency changes. So it's very granular right now, and you'll see it become very granular but melted. Once it becomes syrup-like, that's when it's done, and that's when we're going to add our spice mix. And then we'll cook it for another minute or so, and then turn everything out onto a piece of parchment paper. It's a good idea to have your parchment paper out already and waiting, just so that you have less to do while you're stirring so occasionally. So we're going to set that out. We're going to start up our heat, and let's make some candied pecans. So you want to heat it to medium heat, and while that's heating up, we'll get our parchment paper all set up. I just weighted down the corners of it because parchment paper comes in a roll, so it tends to roll back up very easily. I can already start to hear some sizzling on our sugar, so I'm going to go ahead and start stirring that. There's no changes yet. It'll take a couple minutes for the sugar to get hot enough to melt, and you'll see it start becoming liquid. So we're just stirring in the beginning to coat the sugar evenly across the hot pan. That way it can melt at an even temperature and time. I'm using a silicone spatula because silicone is so easy to clean up. Once all this sugar melts, it's going to be very candy-like, and it will harden just like hard candy hardens. And it's so hard to get off of plastic or bamboo or wood utensils, so silicone is really the best thing to use. However, sugar comes off just as easily as it goes on. All you need to do is just reheat it, and in this pan, the cleanup is very easy. Just use very hot water, it will melt right off. You can already see the sugar is starting to melt. We're getting that liquid on the bottom of the pan. So now we'll be stirring a little more often. It's very easy to burn the sugar. It only takes just leaving the pan unattended for too long, and the smell is awful when sugar burns. It will take a long time to get out of your house. So I highly recommend just sticking around and preventing that burn. You can see it's really melting now. It's still granular. You can see some big pieces of sugar all bunched together, so it's not ready yet. And our pecans aren't really covered in the sugar yet either. So you want to keep stirring almost constantly. Don't leave it alone at all. We're going to add the spices last because they tend to burn a lot faster than sugar, and they'll create an even worse smell. So those we'll add right at the end once everything's ready. We're really starting to get that nice golden sugar color. You can see that here. I'm just turning it down just a little bit so that I don't burn. It's getting close to being done. Almost all of the sugar is completely melted. However, I can still see a little bit of that white sugar pieces in the larger chunks, and I'm waiting for that to be melted. And once that's completely melted, then I will add the spices, stir it, cook another minute maybe, and then turn everything out onto that parchment paper to cool. The color has really darkened, and now it's starting to smoke a little, you can see. So now is a perfect time to shut the heat off and add my spices. Just adding the spices smells so wonderful. Keep stirring. The spices will darken these even more and give it that beautiful dark color. The heat is off right now, but the pan is still very, very hot so that the spices can melt and incorporate into all of the pecans. Make sure everything is coated. When you do turn it out onto the parchment paper, you're going to want to separate everything as much as you can. Do not touch any of these pecans. They are extremely hot. Hot sugar is very, very hot, and it will burn your hands. So use the spatula to do all of the work. Separate them as much as possible when you turn them out so that when they do harden, they're not in a big clump altogether. These look like they are ready. Okay, I think this is about ready. Let's do it. So I've separated them as much as I can without touching them. You'll notice these strings of sugar hanging from my spoon, and that's because the sugar is so hot as it melts, it's kind of creating a cotton candy effect. So if you were to touch it, it's kind of like touching like a hot glue gun where it just sticks on you and it's very hot. So while this pan is hot, I'm going to put some water in it so that the sugar can start melting. So you can see that the sugar is already starting to melt from the pan. If you just let it soak, sugar will completely dissolve in water. If you want to clean it faster, use really hot water and that will just melt everything off. Same with the spatula as well. Give it a few minutes to cool, and once it's cool, you can break them up and taste them. So they look really good. I can't wait to try them. See how beautifully coated they are completely? I love that candy coating, and cooking it just a little bit longer gives it that darker color as well. Let's try them. These are so good. They're still a little warm, which makes them even better. The pumpkin pie mix really adds that fall time flavoring and makes it so good. These are going to go over great at any holiday party. They're so quick to make and everyone will be really impressed. Make sure to double the recipe so that you have plenty of extra for yourself as well. So that's it. The cleanup is really easy. Just break all of them up and put them into a bowl. You can keep the parchment paper in there as well so that they don't stick together. And then just serve them from a nice decorative bowl. The cleanup is really easy. You can see that this is pretty much melted off already. So that's it. Thank you so much for joining me. I will link the full recipe down below, as well as leave a link for our website website where you can purchase the pumpkin pie mix at spicebyrangelSweet.com. So that's it. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you next time.